Trade Station Omega floated in the empty space between Council territory and the Outer Rim, like a metal island in an ocean of stars. It was a place where laws were flexible and questions were not asked too carefully. Merchants, pirates, information. Brokers and refugees gathered here to trade goods, stories, and secrets that could not be shared in more civilized places. Today it was where the Galactic Council would finally learn the truth about what humanity had become. Ambassador Yulhan sat in a dark corner of the station's main cantina, trying to look like just another trader having a drink. His clothes were simple. His manner was casual, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He had been sent here by the Council's intelligence service. To find out what the merchants knew about human activities in the Outer Rim. Across from him sat a nervous Kythera trader named Viscara, whose colorful feathers kept changing colors as her emotions shifted. She was small even for her bird-like species, but she had traveled farther into the dangerous regions of space than most beings would dare. Between them lay a data pad containing information that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. "You are absolutely certain of these recordings?" Yulhan asked, his voice low and careful. "I saw it with my own eyes," Viscara whispered, glancing around the crowded cantina, as if she expected human spies to be listening. "I was making a routine delivery run to the Kepler sector when my ship's navigation system failed. I dropped out of hyperspace in what I thought was completely empty space." She activated the datapad with one trembling claw, and holographic images filled the air above their table. Yulhan's eyes widened in disbelief as he saw what appeared to be an entire star system that had been completely transformed by intelligence and technology. That used to be a dead system. Viscara continued, her voice shaking. "Red dwarf star, 3 barren rocks. Nothing special. The kind of system that most species would not even bother to survey. But look at it now." The hologram showed massive orbital rings around the star itself. Structures so large they could be seen from space, harvesting energy on a scale that seemed to violate the laws of physics. The 3 former barren planets were now covered in gleaming cities that stretched from pole to pole, with lights that could be seen from orbit. Orbital platforms connected the worlds like bridges across space and everywhere. Ships moved in patterns that spoke of a civilization operating at peak efficiency. "How many humans live in that system?" Yulhan asked. "According to my ship's sensors, at least 15 billion, Viscara replied, "but that is just one system, one single star system that they transformed in less than 5 years." Yulhan felt his heart racing. 15 billion people in one system was more than most species had in their entire civilization. "There is more," Viscara said, switching to another recording. "According to the data I gathered, they have colonies like this in over 300 systems. Not just small outposts or research stations, but thriving worlds with billions of people each." 300 systems. Yulhan did the math in his head and came up with numbers that seemed impossible. The fastest expansion in Council history had taken the mighty Nexari Empire 2,000 years to colonize 50 systems. Humanity had done 6 times that in 5 years. "I encountered a human patrol fleet," Viscara continued. 12 ships, but they moved like nothing I have ever seen. They appeared from nowhere, scanned my vessel completely, and vanished again in seconds. Their technology made my ship look like a toy made by children. The recording showed sleek human vessels that seemed to bend space around them, moving with impossible grace and speed through the void. They bore no resemblance to the clunky, functional ships humanity had used during their time in Council space. These were works of art and science combined into something that looked more like living creatures than machines. "They spoke to me," Viscara said. The patrol leader was a human woman named Captain Yunji. She was polite, professional, and absolutely terrifying in her confidence. She asked what I was doing in human space, and when I explained about my navigation failure, she had her engineers repair my ship in minutes. "What kind of repairs?" "My fusion reactor had been failing for months," Council mechanics said. "It would take weeks to fix and cost more than my ship was worth. The human engineers had it running better than new in 10 minutes using tools I had never seen before." Yulhan leaned forward, his diplomatic training warring with his growing amazement. "What did Captain Yunji tell you about their civilization?" "That is the truly frightening part," Viscara replied. She spoke about humanity like they were just getting started. 5 years of expansion, 300 colonized systems, billions of people technology that makes council ships look like ancient relics, and she called it Phase 2 of something called the Great Work. Phase 2. What was Phase 1? According to Captain Yunji, Phase 1 was establishing the foundation colonies and industrial base. Phase 2 is rapid expansion and technological development. She mentioned that Phase 3 would begin soon, but she would not say what that involved. The implications hit Yulhan like a physical blow. The council had banned humanity, thinking they were dealing with a single troublesome species that had grown too ambitious. But humanity had used those 5 years of freedom to transform themselves into something unprecedented in galactic history. There is one more thing. Viskara said, her voice barely audible above the noise of the cantina. Captain Yunji gave me a message. She said that if I ever encountered council representatives, I should tell them that humanity remembers the vote. She said they remember Ambassador Taiho's final words. What words? That when the council realized their mistake, they should remember that it was already too late the moment they made their choice. Yulhan sat back in his chair, his mind reeling as he tried to process what he had learned. The council had spent 5 years congratulating themselves on solving their human problem. They had assumed that banishing humanity would force them to struggle for survival in the dangerous regions of space. They had expected humans to eventually come crawling back begging for readmission to galactic civilization. Instead, humanity had used their exile to become something that made the entire Galactic Council look primitive by comparison. What do you think they want? Yulhan asked. Viskara's feathers shifted to deep purple, the color of fear among her people. I do not think they want anything from us anymore. Captain Yunji looked at me the way I might look at a small child playing with toys. She was not angry or hostile, just completely uninterested in what the council thought about anything. That cannot be right. Every species wants something. Trade partners, allies, resources. Ambassador, Viskara said quietly. I think humanity has outgrown the need for any of those things. They have more resources than they can use. They have technology that makes them completely self-sufficient. They have grown so large and so powerful that the rest of the galaxy has become irrelevant to them. Yulhan stared at the holographic recordings, still playing above their table, showing human achievements that seemed to mock everything the council had accomplished in thousands of years. The terrible truth was beginning to dawn on him. The council had not banned humanity from galactic civilization. They had freed humanity from the limitations of galactic civilization, and now humanity was so far ahead that they might never catch up. Ambassador Taiho had been right. It was already too late the moment the vote was cast. Captain Minsu stood on the bridge of his massive colony ship New Seoul, watching the last human transport vessels leave council space forever. The ship was so big that it had its own parks and lakes inside, but today, none of that beauty mattered. All that mattered was getting his people safely away from the beings who had rejected them. 6 months had passed since the vote. The Galactic Council had wasted no time in making their ban official. Human diplomats were expelled. Human traders were forbidden from council markets. Human students were kicked out of galactic universities. Human families were given 30 days to pack their lives and leave worlds they had called home for generations, but humans had not wasted those 6 months either. Captain, called Navigator Hye Jin from her station. The council patrol ship is practically pushing us out of their space. They want us gone as fast as possible. Minsu nodded grimly. He could see the alien warship on his screen, keeping pace with the human convoy like a guard dog, making sure unwanted visitors actually left. The council ship was sleek and powerful, but it looked small next to the massive human vessels. Good, Minsu replied. Let them think they have won. How many ships are with us? 12,000 Sir Colony ships, research vessels, military escorts, civilian transports, nearly 50 million humans, all heading for the Outer Rim. The Outer Rim was what the Council called the dangerous, unexplored regions beyond their safe-controlled space. It was full of hostile worlds, strange energy storms, deadly radiation, and unknown alien threats. The Council species had always avoided these areas, content to stay in their mapped and protected territories. But humans had been secretly exploring the Outer Rim for decades. Sir Communications Officer Daeun spoke up from her station. Admiral Sung-ho is sending a message from the flagship. He says Phase 1 is complete. Min-soo smiled for the first time in months. The council thought they were watching a defeated species flee into exile like whipped dogs with their tails between their legs. They had no idea they were witnessing the beginning of the largest colonization effort in galactic history. The truth was that humans had seen this day coming for years. While other species spent their time in council meetings and diplomatic parties, human explorers had been quietly mapping the Outer Rim. Human scientists had been studying the dangerous phenomena that scared other species. Human engineers had been designing ships that could survive in conditions that would kill any council vessel. Send a message to all convoy ships, Min-soo ordered. Remind them that we are not refugees running away from our problems. We are pioneers, heading toward our destiny. The council has given us the greatest gift possible: freedom from their rules, their limitations, their fear of taking risks. The convoy jumped to hyperspace in perfect formation, leaving council territory behind forever. As the stars blurred past his viewports, Min-soo thought about the secret human colonies already thriving in the Outer Rim. The council had spent centuries avoiding the dangerous regions of space, but humans had spent decades turning those dangers into opportunities. Hidden shipyards were already producing new types of vessels with technology the council had never seen. Human scientists were unlocking secrets from ancient alien ruins that other species had deemed too risky to explore. Human soldiers were training in environments so harsh that council species would die within hours. Captain Hai-jin called out, "We are approaching the nexus point. The rendezvous coordinates are locked in. Excellent. Send the signal to all convoy leaders. Tell them it is time to show the galaxy what humans can really do when nobody is watching over our shoulders." The massive convoy dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of what would soon become known as the Human Expansion Zone. Min-soo expected to see empty space and distant stars. What he saw instead made him catch his breath in wonder. Waiting for them were not empty worlds and hostile wilderness, but thriving human colonies. Massive space stations orbited planets that glowed with city. Lights fleets of ships moved in organized patterns between worlds that had been transformed from barren rocks into garden paradises. "My God," whispered Hae-jin, "how long have we been building out here?" "Longer than most people knew," Min-soo replied. While the council was debating whether humans were too dangerous, humanity was already becoming something they could never have imagined. The communication system crackled to life with a familiar voice. "Welcome to New Terra Colony Ship New Soul. This is Admiral Jinwoo commanding the Outer Rim Defense Force. We have been waiting for you." On the main screen appeared the face of a woman Min-soo had not seen for 5 years. Admiral Jinwoo had been one of Earth's top military commanders until she had volunteered for a deep space exploration mission. Now she wore the uniform of something entirely new. "Admiral," Min-soo said, "your timing is perfect. We have 50 million people who need new homes. We have homes ready for them. Captain, we have jobs waiting for them. We have schools for their children and hospitals for their sick. We have been preparing for this day since the moment we realized the council would never accept us as equals." The convoy moved deeper into human space, passing world after world that showed signs of massive development. Some planets had orbital rings around them, harvesting energy from their suns. Others had been completely terraformed with new atmospheres and artificial gravity. Some had cities that stretched across entire continents. "How many people live out here?" Daeun asked in amazement. 15 million in the established colonies." Admiral Jinwoo replied, "But that is just the beginning. With the new arrivals, we will have enough population to begin Phase 2 of the great work." "Phase 2, Min-soo asked. "Rapid expansion." "Captain, we have identified over 300 systems suitable for human colonization. We have the technology to terraform worlds in years instead of centuries. We have the ships to move populations quickly and safely. And now we have the people to make it happen." As the new soul approached its destination, Min-soo could see the future stretching out before humanity, like an endless road of possibilities the council had feared. human ambition, but they had never understood the true scope of human dreams, Captain He-jin said quietly. I think Ambassador Taeho was right. It really was already too late the moment they voted against us. Minsu nodded, watching as thousands of human ships spread out across the star system like seeds carried by the wind. Each ship carried families and dreams, and the unshakable human belief that any problem could be solved with enough determination and creativity. The exodus was complete, but for humanity, it was not an ending. It was the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before, the beginning of a civilization that refused to accept limits, the beginning of a species that would not be contained. The Council had set them free, and freedom for humans meant the stars themselves were no longer out of reach. Council leader Vexandra had ruled the Galactic Council for over 3 centuries, and in all that time she had never felt the cold touch of real fear until now. She stood in her private chambers, high above the Council world, looking out at the stars, and wondering what humanity had become in the 5 years since their banishment. The silence from the outer rim was becoming more terrifying than any threat or declaration of war would have been. Report, she commanded, as her advisors filed into the chamber. These were not the public faces that appeared in the Great Council meetings. These were the spies and intelligence gatherers and military analysts who dealt with the secrets that kept the galaxy stable. Intelligence Chief Morgath stepped forward, his shadowy form seeming to absorb light from the room. His species had evolved to gather information, and his network of spies reached into every corner of known space. But today, he looked worried. Leader, we have a serious problem. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures from the outer rim, but we cannot identify their source or purpose. Explain. The readings suggest industrial activity on a scale we have never seen before. Hundreds of worlds showing signs of terraforming orbital construction, and what appears to be stellar engineering projects that should take millennia are being completed in years. Vexandra felt her ancient heart skip a beat. Stellar engineering meant manipulating stars themselves, building structures around them, harvesting their energy on impossible scales. Only the most advanced civilizations in galactic history had ever attempted such things. Perhaps these readings are natural phenomena, suggested Ambassador Krill Knox of the Vorthak. The outer rim is known for its dangerous energy storms and unstable stellar formations. No, Morgath replied firmly. We have also lost contact with 17 deep space exploration vessels over the past 2 years. All disappeared, in regions where we detected human activity before the ban. The room fell silent. 17 ships with crews totaling over 2,000 beings had simply vanished, without sending any distress signals, without leaving any wreckage, without any trace at all. What do you mean by human activity? Vexandra asked, though she was beginning to fear the answer. Before the ban, our intelligence network tracked several human exploration missions to the outer rim. We assumed they were small scientific expeditions, studying dangerous phenomena. Now we believe they were advanced scouts for something much larger. General Korvex, the Council's supreme military commander, stepped forward. His species had evolved for warfare, and his tactical mind had kept the galaxy peaceful for centuries, but today his confidence seemed shaken. Leader, I recommend sending a battle fleet to investigate. If the humans are building something in the outer rim, we need to know what it is. We need to know how big it is. And we need to know if it threatens Council space. No, Vexandra said quickly. The ban specifically forbids us from entering human-occupied space, just as it forbids them from entering ours. We cannot break our own laws without destroying the legal foundation of the Council. But privately, she was beginning to realize that the Council had made a critical error in judgment. They had assumed that banning humanity would weaken them, isolate them, force them to eventually beg for readmission to galactic civilization, like other troublesome species had done in the past. Instead, they had given humanity something far more dangerous: unlimited freedom to grow, without oversight, without restrictions, without the careful controls that had kept every other species manageable. For millennia, continue monitoring, she ordered. and send discreet diplomatic contacts to the neutral trade stations near the outer rim. I want to know what the merchants and travelers are seeing." After her advisors left, Vexandra remained alone. In her chamber, staring at the holographic display of the galaxy, the safe, controlled regions where the Council held power seemed smaller than they had 5 years ago. The dark, unexplored regions where humanity had vanished were beginning to glow, with lights that suggested massive populations and industrial development. For 3 centuries, she had guided galactic civilization with careful patience. Every species was kept in balance. Every conflict was resolved through negotiation. Every dangerous technology was controlled through treaties and regulations. The galaxy had been stable and peaceful under her rule, but humans had never fit into that careful balance. They grew too fast, adapted too quickly, refused to accept that some problems had no solutions. Their very existence had been a constant source of disruption to the ordered universe she had spent centuries creating. The ban had seemed like the perfect solution. Remove the disruptive element and restore galactic stability. Let humanity struggle in the dangerous regions of space until they learned to appreciate the safety and order of Council civilization. Instead, the silence from the outer rim suggested that humanity had not struggled at all. They had thrived in ways that defied everything the Council understood about how civilizations developed. "Display long-range sensor data from the past 5 years," she commanded. The hologram changed to show energy readings from the outer rim regions. What she saw made her feel truly afraid for the first time in her long life. The readings showed not just development but exponential growth. Industrial output that doubled every year, population centers that appeared overnight, fleets of ships moving in patterns that suggested coordination on a galactic scale. Display human population estimates. The computer's mechanical voice filled the chamber. Based on energy output settlement patterns and industrial activity, human population in the outer rim is estimated between 40 and 60 billion individuals. Vexandra staggered backward. 60 billion humans in 5 years. When they had been banned, their total population across all worlds had been barely 3 billion. How was such growth possible? Display comparative analysis with other species expansion rates. Human expansion rate exceeds all known galactic civilizations by a factor of 50 to 1. Average species colonization timeline is 2,000 years for 50 star systems. Human colonization appears to have reached over 400 star systems in 5 years. The ancient council leader sank into her chair as the full magnitude of the situation became clear. The council had not solved their human problem. They had unleashed it. They had taken a single troublesome species and given them unlimited space and freedom to become something unprecedented in galactic history. The silence from the outer rim was not the silence of a defeated people struggling to survive. It was the silence of a civilization so advanced and so powerful that they no longer needed to announce their presence. They no longer needed permission or approval or recognition from anyone. They had simply outgrown the need for the Galactic Council entirely. For the first time in 3 centuries, Council leader Vexandra wondered if she had made a mistake that could never be undone. And deep in her ancient heart, she began to suspect that Ambassador Tejo had been right when he said it was already too late. The huge metal doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep rumbling sound that made every being inside feel small. Ambassador Tejo walked through those doors knowing this might be the last time he would ever enter this place as a welcome guest. His black shoes clicked against the shiny floor as he made his way to the human section of the great circular room. The chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in perfect circles going up and up like a giant stadium. Each species had their own section with special chairs made for their different body types. The snake people called Vorthak had long heated benches. The bird people called Cathera had high perches with room for their colorful wings. The crystal beings called Zilthans had platforms that let light pass through their bodies. Tejo sat down in his simple human chair and looked around at all the alien faces staring at him. Most of them were not friendly. Some looked angry, some looked afraid. A few just looked disgusted. He had been Earth's voice in this place for 15 long years. He had made friends with some of these beings. He had shared meals with others. He had even helped solve problems between different species. But today, all of that meant nothing. Today, they were here to vote on whether humans should be banned from the galaxy. The council leader stood up at the center of the chamber. Her species was so old that no one remembered their real name. Everyone just called them the Ancients. She was tall and gray with 6 arms and eyes that glowed like small suns. When she spoke, her voice filled every corner of the massive room. "We gather today to discuss the human problem," she said. And Tejo felt his heart sink at those words. Many species have brought concerns about human behavior, human expansion, human military power, human refusal to follow our ancient ways. The Vorthak ambassador was the first to speak. He slithered up to the speaking platform, his snake body coiling and uncoiling as he talked. "The humans are dangerous," he hissed. "In just 200 years they have spread to more worlds than most of us visit in 2,000 years. They build cities where we see only empty rock. They make farms where we see only desert. They refuse to accept that some things cannot be done." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber like waves on a pond. Next came the Cathera representative. Her feathers were bright red today, which meant she was very upset. "Humans do not respect the natural order," she chirped. "When we find a world with storms, they wait for calm weather. When humans find a world with storms, they build machines to control the storms. When we find a dangerous animal, we avoid it. When humans find a dangerous animal, they make it into a pet." More agreement from the crowd. Tejo noticed that even some of his former friends were nodding along. The Crystal Ziltan ambassador spoke next, her voice sounding like musical chimes. "Human traders always find better deals than ours. They make agreements that seem impossible. They promise things that cannot be delivered, yet somehow they always deliver them. Their success makes other species look foolish." One by one, the species stood up to speak against humanity. The tall gray Nexari complained about human military tactics that won battles they should have lost. The peaceful mollusk people who lived in shell cities worried that human ambition would eventually reach their quiet worlds. Even the plant people, called Verdani, said that humans changed planets too quickly and too completely. Tejo listened to it all with a heavy heart, but he was not surprised. He had seen this coming for years. The other species were not evil or cruel. They were just afraid. Humans did things differently. Humans solved problems in ways that seemed impossible. Humans refused to accept limits that every other species had accepted for thousands of years. This scared the other species more than any weapon or army could. When all the accusations were finished, the council leader stood up again. "The vote is simple," she announced. "Should humanity be stripped of their galactic citizenship? Should they be banned from all council worlds? Should they be forbidden from entering our space?" The voting began immediately. Each species had one vote represented by a glowing crystal that could shine green for yes or red for no. Tejo watched as crystal after crystal began to glow green. Green for yes. Green for ban the humans. Green for send them away. The Vorthak voted green. The Kithera voted green. The Zilthans voted green. The Nexari voted green. The mollusks voted green. Even some species that Tejo thought were friends voted green in the end. 46 species voted to ban humanity. Only one crystal glowed red. The human crystal. Tejo stood up slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the chamber upon him. He was 57 years old and had spent most of his adult life serving as Earth's voice in galactic Ozm politics. He had always believed that understanding and cooperation could solve any problem, but today he realized that some fears were stronger than friendship. Council leader, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. "I request permission to speak before you make this decision final." The ancient being looked down at him with those glowing eyes. "Speak quickly, human. Your time here is ending." Tejo walked to the center of the chamber where speakers traditionally stood. He looked up at all the beings around him. Species from dozens of worlds with technologies and cultures humanity could barely understand. Yet they were all afraid of one young species that had only recently learned to travel between stars. "You fear us because we are different," he began. "You fear our speed, our ability to adapt, our refusal to accept that something cannot be done. But in your fear, you have made a terrible mistake." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You believe that banning us from your worlds will contain us. You think it will control us, you hope it will make us disappear. But you have forgotten something important about humans." The chamber was completely quiet now. Even the usual sounds of breathing and movement had stopped. Humans have never needed permission to survive. We have never asked for approval to grow. We have never waited for others to tell us what we can or cannot achieve. You are not sending us away, honored council. You are setting us free. Angry voices erupted from several sections of the chamber. The Vorthak ambassador hissed loudly. The Kithara representative's feathers turned deep purple with rage. But Tai Ho continued speaking. "For 15 years I have sat in this chamber following your rules, respecting your traditions, trying to make humanity fit into your vision of how the galaxy should work. But humanity was never meant to fit into someone else's vision. We were meant to create our own." He began walking toward the exit, gathering his papers and personal items as he spoke. "When you realize your mistake, and you will remember this moment, remember that you chose fear over friendship. Remember that you decided to push away the one species that could have helped you reach for the stars instead of just living beneath them." As he reached the great doors, Taeho turned back one final time. Every being in the chamber was staring at him, some with anger, some with fear, some with what might have been regret. "And remember this, most of all," he said, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "It was already too late the moment you made that choice." The doors closed behind him with that same deep rumble, and Ambassador Taeho walked away from the Galactic Council for the last time. But he was not walking toward defeat. He was walking toward freedom. And freedom for humanity meant something the galaxy had never seen before. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in the organization's long history. Every species representative was present, and the massive chamber buzzed with fear, confusion, and growing panic. The reports from the outer rim had finally reached every corner of council space, and the implications were staggering enough to shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Council leader Vex Andra stood before the assembled delegates, her ancient form trembling slightly as she prepared to speak. She had ruled this chamber for over 3 centuries, guiding dozens of species through countless crises, but nothing in her long experience had prepared her for this moment. "Fellow beings," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room, "we face a crisis that threatens everything we have built together. The intelligence reports are clear and terrifying. Humanity has not merely survived their exile from our civilization, they have thrived beyond our worst nightmares." The holographic display behind her activated, showing the latest surveillance data that had been gathered at enormous risk by brave scouts and traders. Human colonies spread across the galaxy like a plague of lights. Advanced fleets moving through space, with technology that seemed to mock the laws of physics, industrial complexes that harvested the energy of entire stars. "In 5 years," Vexandra continued, "they have established major colonies in over 400 star systems. Their population has exploded from 3 billion to over 60 billion. Their technology has advanced by what appears to be centuries rather than years." The chamber erupted in frightened voices, representatives from dozens of species all talking at once, demanding answers that no one could provide. The snake-like Vorthak hissed about deception and betrayal. The bird-like Kithara shrieked about humanity's violation of natural law. The crystal Zilthans chimed in harmonies of pure terror. General Quarvex stepped forward, his military bearing barely concealing his own fear. He had spent his entire career preparing for threats to galactic peace, but he had never imagined anything like this. "Council leader, we must act immediately. Every day we delay, they grow stronger. Our military analysts believe that within another 5 years, human capabilities will exceed our combined fleets. It may already be too late for military action, admitted Intelligence Chief Morgath, his shadowy form seeming to shrink. With the weight of his words, our deep space monitors have detected human vessels entering Council space. Not for invasion, but for observation. They are watching us, studying us, learning our weaknesses. The panic in the chamber grew louder. Representatives demanded immediate war, while others called for desperate negotiations. Some species began discussing evacuation plans, while others suggested surrender. The careful order that had maintained galactic peace for millennia was crumbling in real time. Through the chaos, a new voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. You finally understand. Every being in the chamber turned toward the main entrance in shock. A figure stood there that should not have been able to enter the most secure building in Council space. It was a human woman, tall and confident, wearing a simple black uniform with no visible weapons or technology. Her name tag read, Ambassador So Young Human Federation, in letters that seemed to glow with their own light. How did you get in here? Vexandra demanded, but her voice lacked its usual authority. The ancient council leader was staring at this human woman as if she were seeing a ghost. The same way our ships have been moving through your space for months. So Young replied, walking calmly toward the center of the chamber. The same way we established colonies on worlds you thought were impossible to terraform. The same way we solved problems you believed were unsolvable. We stopped asking for permission. She activated a small device, and the chamber's holographic display changed to show a new map of the galaxy. Half of the known space was now colored in blue, representing human territory. The other half, showing council space, looked suddenly small and fragile by comparison. 5 years ago, you feared us because we were different, So Young said, her voice carrying easily through the silent chamber. You banned us because you thought we were dangerous. You were absolutely right to fear us, but for all the wrong reasons. She gestured toward the display showing the new balance of power in the galaxy. You feared our expansion, but you never understood our true potential. You feared our technology, but you never grasped our innovation. You feared our ambition, but you never comprehended our determination. The chamber had fallen completely silent. Every representative was staring at this human woman who had somehow entered their most secure facility and was now calmly explaining how humanity had conquered half the galaxy. We are not here to threaten you. So Young continued, we are not here to demand tribute or surrender. We are here to offer you the same choice you offered us 5 years ago. What choice? Vexandra whispered, her ancient voice barely audible. Join us or be left behind. So Young said simply, the galaxy is vast enough for all of us, but only if you can accept that humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist. We are no longer seeking approval for our dreams. We are no longer waiting for others to decide our fate. She looked directly at Vexandra, and the ancient council leader felt as if those human eyes could see into her very soul. Ambassador Tejo was right when he stood in this chamber 5 years ago. When you voted to ban us, you did not weaken us, you set us free. And now you finally understand what he meant when he said it was already too late. The display behind her changed again, showing massive human fleets positioned at the edges of council space. Not as invaders, but as the representatives of a new galactic power that had emerged while the council was congratulating themselves on solving their human problem. The age of the council is ending, So Young said with the calm certainty of someone stating a simple fact. The age of humanity has begun. The only question now is whether you will be part of our future or become a footnote in our history. She turned toward the exit but paused at the threshold. You have 24 hours to decide. We suggest you choose wisely. This time there will be no second chances. The great doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder, and the chamber remained silent for long minutes. Every delegate stared at the holographic display that showed a galaxy where humanity had already won, not through conquest or war, but through the simple act of becoming unstoppable council leader. Vexandra sank into her chair, feeling every one of her centuries weighing down upon her. The careful balance she had maintained for so long was gone. The galaxy she had known and ruled was ending. and in its place something new and human was being born. Around her, representatives began to whisper and argue and plan, but she knew the truth that none of them wanted to face the choice they had made 5 years ago, and fear and anger had sealed their fate. They had created their own replacement ambassador. Tejo had been absolutely right. It had been too late the moment they cast their votes, and now all they could do was decide whether to join the future or be swept aside by it. The age of humanity had indeed begun.